Victor Gaspar. Did I say it right, Gaspar?
Victor Gaspar, yeah,
Okay, cool, cool. Thank you for doing this. Taking the time out of your
my
busy
pleasure,
schedule.
brother.
Welcome to Herrera Health and Wellness. This is your boy Anthony, of course. Listen, you sticking to the basics, calisthenics, the simple stuff, eating whatever you want. I got to give you your props for that because with the world that we live in now, with the fad diets and so many different styles of training, right, can overwhelm a beginner. So shout out to you for posting for creating that content where it's simple and people can get shredded with simplicity and without having so many diet restrictions.
Absolutely. Well,
So
Anthony, thanks for having me. Simplicity is king, you know, when it comes to your nutrition, to training. I've been doing this for so long, been training for so long, been on and off dieting for probably close to 20 years. So I've tried my fair share of diets, my fair share of programs, and I always came back to the conclusion that it's the simple things. It's the basics that work. It's the basics that work in training. It's the basics that work with your nutrition and with your daily programming as well.
yeah, definitely. Now, of course, we're gonna do a reintroduction, Victor Gaspar. But I will say this, I will point this out because on your YouTube and on your Instagram, right, accounts, you don't have any title. You don't have anything that says coach, trainer, content creator, influencer. In a world where everyone and their mother is a coach and a trainer, right? Why don't you subscribe, if at all, to having any of that on any of your accounts?
Mm. Well, I am a coach, yes, but if you check my Instagram profile, the first thing you're going to see there is man of God because
Sure.
there's a priority list there. So people like to call me coach. A lot of friends call me coach, actually, obviously my clients, but it's again, first and foremost, I'm here to do to fulfill my purpose as a man of God, if you will. And then the fact that I coach people, that I show them the ropes in training and nutrition, that's just icing on the cake for me. Even though it is my job, it is what I do, it's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Um, I still want to be known as a faithful Christian man first and foremost, and
Definitely.
then we can build on that. We can look at my credentials. We can look at some of my testimonials that I like to share online as well. And that's that. But um, I've I've known so many coaches in my time, and I've been disappointed by so many coaches through personal interactions or just through the sheer lack of knowledge and proper application in their own lives. So that's why the term is just it holds no more weight in today's day and age where everybody, as you say, is a coach, is working as an online coach or is claiming to be a coach. It just has no more meaning.
That's a key word you said, claiming, right? So
Mm,
I remember when I first got my training certification, I
mm,
was I was really excited. I got a job at New York Sports Club, and I was hype. I wanted to help people. Like I that's what my purpose is, to serve others, right? That's a man's biggest purpose, is to be a servant, right?
amen.
You know?
We're getting to the good stuff already, Anthony. I love it,
And
brother.
we'll get into that. But like when I got into this gym, I was excited and I really wanted to help people, but all I saw was a sales pitch, a huge sales pitch. They didn't care
Mm,
about the person. They just wanted to get as much commission, as many sales as possible. And I just totally fell out of love with that part of the business, right? Just the
mm,
business side of it. All I wanted to do was help people. Of course, you want to make money doing it, but at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? And speaking of God, right? On Friday, we were supposed to connect, but that didn't happen.
mm.
Thursday night, my daughter, she wanted me to pick her up. She stays at her grandma's while we work during the day. She was crying, like she really wanted me to pick her up on
Mm.
Friday. Friday morning comes, we had to reschedule. Therefore, I was able to pick up my daughter. Isn't it amazing the way it works?
That's amazing. It's one of those God things. You know why? Because that day specifically, I was asking to reschedule because one of my longtime friends here from Ecuador, he's actually originally from Peru, but he lives in Ecuador now, came to visit. And I wanted to spend time with him. And I do respect your time greatly. So I didn't reschedule. I asked if we could do this some other time or later that day because I wanted to spend time with my brother. And we were actually playing some soccer at our foundation, the kids foundation we have here at the heart of Quito, the capital of Ecuador. So, it just worked out. And I'm grateful for your flexibility, the fact that we could set it up so quickly on this beautiful Monday. So here we are.
I appreciate that. So speaking of Ecuador, and I actually didn't even know about your foundation.
Mm.
I would love to get into that. But first, how did you end up in Ecuador? Are you from the States?
I'm not from the States, brother. I was
No.
born in Europe. I was born in Romania,
Okay.
Eastern Europe, and I grew up um, in Salzburg, Austria. So my parents separated when I was very young, and my mom moved me to Austria. My dad and my older brother, they moved to the US. So that's my connection to the US. I would go visit them every summer. I would spend with my dad and my brother, and I would pick up the language, obviously, the culture from the US and all that. Um, but yeah, I'm originally from Europe.
Yeah, because your English is solid.
Thank you, brother.
So
And
yes. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, and the Ecuador connection is again through my father, so through my family, because he lived in the U.S. for the bulk of his life, and then he found his future wife back then in Washington D.C., and she was from Ecuador,
Mm.
so they got married, and then they moved here to Quito, and I was just a young lost kid traveling the world at that time. Well, not that young anymore, actually. I was around, like early 30s, and I had scheduled a trip through South America, and I just came to Ecuador, met with him. I hadn't seen him in years before that, and he had this foundation. So his wife had this beautiful foundation it's like an after school program in the historical center of the city, and I just loved what they did. I before that I never had any experience with volunteer work. To be very honest with you, I thought it was the lamest thing to do back in those days. Again, I was young and dumb and certainly lost in life, and I just loved the foundation, the work they did, and I saw that they needed help. They needed people. They needed manpower. They needed people who are committed. So I said, you know what? What I'm not going to do the trip to Colombia. I'm not going to be doing this road trip that I had planned. I'm going to stay here with you until my visa runs out, and then I'm going to head back to my home, which back in those days was Austria, was Salzburg, Austria. So I spent a couple months there, loved every minute of it, to be honest with you. And then when I came back to Austria, I was really bummed, and I only went back because my visa ran out. So went back home, sold some of my belongings, and um, did what I had to do to be able to come back to Ecuador and keep working with the foundation and just enjoy life here. So this was 6 years ago,
Wow.
5 years ago, 5.5, almost 6 years ago, and it's been a wild ride. But I'm gonna be as honest as I can be. It's been the best 5 6 years of my life. Also, in large part because here is where I found God. This is where I converted, if you will. This is where I met the people who put me on the right path, and it's been amazing.
So you would say it's safe to say the last 5, 6 years you've been living in your purpose, living your highest
Amen.
self.
Amen,
Now,
brother.
tell me about these 6 years in Ecuador, where these past 5, 6 years where you converted and you found the people uh, like you found that right circle, that you found the circle that was necessary for you to become who you are today. But
Mm.
before you found that circle, like you said you were lost, but what was life like before that? Like, were you getting into any like trouble? Were you just wayward?
Okay, yeah. Here's the thing. I was never a man of vices. I never got into heavy drinking, drug use. Obviously, I did what was socially accepted and still is, unfortunately, which is heavy binge drinking and all that stuff. But I was never an addict, if you will. And I also was raised properly, so I never went down the crime path or looking for trouble path. No, what I mean by lost is that I knew what I had to do in terms of my business, in terms of my financial future. I did not know my purpose in this world truly, other than the fact that I like to work out and I'm good at teaching people um, how to work out, how to eat properly, and how to move closer to their, at that time, very shallow goals, which were
Mhm.
basically improving the mirror image. At this point in my life, I understand it runs much deeper than that. And that's not because there's anything wrong with having vain goals or having aesthetic goals, a desire to look a certain way. There's nothing wrong with that. However, once you pursue that path and you just learn that you become something entirely different through the process of getting your nutrition right, getting your body right through training and through the right daily habits. It transcends the physiological. It transcends the just the sheer vanity side of things. So I would say I was lost because I didn't know God, and my understanding now and my experience over these last 40 years, there's no purpose to life without God, outside of God. God has a plan and a purpose for each and every one of us, Christian or not, whether you believe it or not. Um, God made that plan before he even created the world. He knew who you're going to be and who you were supposed to be. And again, my experience is that you can only feel fulfilled and purposeful if you walk in that path that God predestined for you. And I wasn't. I wasn't. I was living for, I said I wasn't a man of vices, but I was a man of pleasures. So I
Mhm.
would live for casual sex and live for um, simple, meaningless pleasure, and that was taking me further and further away from my purpose, which was to become the best at what I do right now, was to become one of the best coaches, one of the best leaders, um, and not just in training and fitness and nutrition, but also especially as a leader for fellow men, fellow brothers of in Christ, men of God, brothers in Christ.
Did you feel empty, or did you notice a feeling of emptiness during that time when you were like a man doing all these pleasurable
Mm.
things?
Oddly, no, brother. I was never miserable. I never hit rock bottom in life. God never took me through those experiences. But I will tell you this, when I made that switch, this was early 2020 when I was voraciously reading the Bible every morning just because I wanted to. There was nobody pointing fingers telling me, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do that." No, I had the right environment of people pushing me in the right direction, but I'm also so thick-headed and stubborn that I would never take anybody else's experience or anybody else's religion on just because. No, I had to see it for myself. So I was just reading through the Bible one morning. This was January, February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And it just clicked in my head. I was reading through the first book of Corinthians in the New Testament, and I simply could no longer deny that this was the Word of God. I was the biggest skeptic of them all, so I would always say, why would anyone trust a book written by men, uh, fallible men, as the Bible clearly states,
Mhm.
um, many hundreds and thousands of years ago? So what's the purpose? What's the meaning of this? I didn't believe until I believed, as lame as that might sound. I just read it, and it was the biggest aha moment, the biggest uh, light switch being turned on in my head ever in my life. So everything changed from there. I'm somebody, Anthony, I like to do things all or nothing. I'm either all in or all out. So I was contemplating in my mind, trying to reason with still continuing my life regularly, but just calling myself a Christian now, or just believing in a higher power now. But I knew that that was dishonest and it was meaningless. The only way to do this is to go all in, you know. So I decided then and there that okay, this is it for me. You know, this is it for the old Vic, the old life. We're gonna start a completely different journey now. What does that mean? We are going to follow the commandments and the statutes of God as best as we can going forward. That doesn't mean I'm going to be a saint. I'm going to be perfect for the next however many years I have on this planet, but I'm going to try my best to be who God is calling me to be. And that extended to training, nutrition, particularly when it comes to fasting, food abstinence. I went all in, not just, you know, the fact that I wasn't sleeping around anymore and I wasn't indulging in meaningless vices anymore. I tried to combine the training that I did, my nutrition, everything under this headship, if you will, of God. And those were and continue to be the best years of my life. So whenever people are skeptical about Christianity, I can only speak for myself, but I tell you, I've done I've done it without God. I've done it with God for the last 5 years. I've lived my life like everybody else. I now live my life exclusively for God. Um, this is better. It's not even close.
It's
This
a
is
huge,
infinitely better.
yeah, it's a huge perspective shift, like just
Mm.
overall, not just within you, just the way you look at things, the way you communicate with others, the way you respond to things is pretty much a complete shift within your entire world, you know?
Absolutely. And everything makes sense now. Whereas before, you know, you would just look at things going on in the world and you would scratch your head in disbelief and be like, man, this is crazy times we're living in. But if you have the Bible at your hand, at your side, and if you have, more importantly, God at your side, all these things make sense now. You understand, oh, yeah, okay, it's supposed to be this way. It had to happen this way. In terms of what's going on around you, but also in terms of what's going on in your life, in your day to day. It just makes sense now. Even if it's, you know, Christianity or living a life faithful to God is not easy street. I got to make this very
Yeah,
clear.
I can imagine.
It's actually much more challenging than the life I used to live before, but it's also infinitely more rewarding. So you get to choose how you live this life. I'm not saying anybody has to do what I do. I'm just saying, hey, I've tried a bunch of things. I've been around the block a couple times. This is so far the best I've tried. Now, take it for what it's worth, you know? Uh,
I mean, everything happens on God's timing, right? Everything is written as it's supposed to be. It's just a matter of you as an individual, having trust, faith, and belief, and just being patient. Your time will
exactly.
come. Just got to keep that mindset. Now, let's talk about the foundation a little bit. Tell me more about it.
Um, Foundation in what way, brother?
So you said you volunteer, right? You're part of the
Oh,
foundation.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was thinking,
So
brother, I'm like so in this
I know.
spiritual discussion right now. I'm thinking, oh, the foundation is Jesus Christ,
Well,
you
that
know.
that's
But obviously,
but
obviously,
that
you're
that's what I was gonna ask because like is the foundation is that religious based? Is that Christianity based? Is it like
great question.
church? Yeah.
It's yes and no. first and foremost, we are there as an after school program to serve the kids of a very poor neighborhood here in Ecuador. Um, what we do is not we bring them in and then we brainwash them with our Christian values. No, we help them with their homework. Um, we give them something to eat, which in many cases is the only hot meal they get in that day. And we give them companionship and a safe place to stay. Now, for your viewers in the US, it might sound silly. Oh, safe. What do you mean? Well, a lot of violence, domestic and out on the streets, a lot of alcoholism and drug abuse in these parts of the town. So there's no positive influence there, or very, very little. And there's no safety. So we try to provide that in addition to all the school work that we help them with, all the educational stuff that we try to help them with, because also the education system here, the school system is not the best, without trying to be disrespectful with my Ecuadorian brothers and sisters. It's not the best. Let's just leave it at that. So we help them with everything they need, in air quotes, as best as we can, you know.
Yeah.
But we also teach them our values, biblical principles of respect, of loving your neighbor, of responsibility. Across the board, we try to help them. Me, obviously, I train with them. You know, we do our push-ups and squats, we do our leg raises and abdominal work, and we play a lot of soccer. So I also teach them about that side of things, of honoring this temple that God has given us, of taking care of your body, and not trashing it with junk food, and not being lazy.
Yeah, being active, being I do have a living in Ecuador, right? You have the
Yes, brother.
foundation, beautiful thing. Before I get to that, just what life is like in Ecuador. You said the only hot meal they may possibly be
Mhm.
getting that day, or maybe the only meal period. What about the parents? Are the parents able to maybe participate in this program as well? Maybe they need a hot meal.
They do actually. We offer that. We don't have the means to help out every poor kid in the area and their parents. But what we do is we help them more than anything with opportunity and education. So um, we give them the means as best as we can to make more money and provide better for their kids. So obviously our hands are tied in a sense that we don't have a lot of financial backing, or the government doesn't support us whatsoever. Um, Simply because we want to do things our way. And if the government starts supporting us, they want to have a say so. And then we just become like every other foundation. That's not what we're trying to do. But again, our focus is the kids, and is specifically the education of the
Mm.
kids and putting them on the right path to succeed in life. The hot meals are a bonus. I know that that might sound trivial, because yes, some of these kids don't have access to high quality foods because their parents don't have access to high quality foods themselves. They don't have the financial means to support for their children. So we try and help out as best as we can. Fortunately, we also receive food donations from businesses here in Ecuador, and we share those not just with the kids, but also with the parents, specifically those who are in need. Now, again, fortunately, not all the parents need financial support. It's just a few of them, and we do our best to help them. But also, more than anything, we try and show them, since the president and the founder of the foundation is very well connected in politics here in Ecuador, we try and connect them with the right people, and open doors for them, and that is, I believe, much more helpful in the long run than just giving handouts, and you know, giving them hot meals and clothes to wear. Yes, those are obviously uh, fundamental as well, but has to go further than that, you know.
Yeah, you're building a better tomorrow, starting with the youth.
Brother, we're trying to, and when I first came to this foundation, I was just like every other guy, like in my early 30s. I didn't give a damn about anybody else's kids. I didn't like kids. I was like, yeah, they're there, but they didn't bother me. But at the same time, I I could care less about them. But it was them who taught me about respect, about kindness, about um, giving without expecting anything in return. It was those kids that taught me about true love. Not the love whatever we think in today's
Unconditional, yeah.
exactly, exactly. Just the fact that you're there showing up for them was the greatest thing for these kids. They were so grateful, um, and it just shifted my perspective completely in a sense that I thought, why are these kids so happy if they don't have anything? Why do these kids truly love me, even though I'm just a guy, they spend a couple hours in the afternoon with. But I could tell it was genuine. They would light up when they saw me. That's when I really first started thinking to myself, life is more than it seems. It can't just be about making money, banging chicks, and you know, buying a bigger home or a nicer car or whatever. That to me, it showed me the true meaning of life, like a, a little bit of that, a glimpse of what's out there. And it also made me more receptive to the idea of a God, of a loving God, a kind God, a merciful God. So that's how it all started for me. And now to this day, almost 6 years later, I love nothing more than going to the foundation and spending my afternoons there, just hanging out with the kids. It's not even about doing something, oh, I got to do this and that with the kids for it to have any meaning. No, it's just to be there, help wherever I'm needed, and spend some quality time with those children.
It's a blessing, and kids are innocent, even though when some of them may not seem so innocent, but kids are they're beautiful, and they're I look at my daughter sometimes, and sometimes she pisses me off, but like that's just an innocent child that sometimes just just needs to lash out, and just
Yeah.
express herself however she
Mm.
needs to be. So what's life in
Beautifully
Ecuador
said.
like? Yeah.
Brother, it's good for me because Ecuador, because I'm free to do my thing here. I don't depend on the government. I don't need handouts. I don't need anyone other than God, other than my beautiful wife. Um, it's wonderful here. Not so much for the populace. Why? Because the economy is very low. The crime rate is very high. Right now, we're like Colombia 20 years ago, a narco state. We're
Wow.
we're really fighting with the cartels. Mexican cartels actually
Wow.
have taken over here in Ecuador, and they're just using it as a well. It's not so much a producer of cocaine as it's used as a transport nation, if you will. Some of the biggest producers are up north in Colombia. We share a border with Colombia, and down south in Peru, we also share a border with them. And they just transport the stuff through the country, which brings with it a lot of violence. They also use our harbors to bring the stuff to the States and to Europe, which are the biggest consumers of cocaine and other drugs. So, unfortunately, in the last 5 to 6 years that I've been here, um, it's gotten completely out of hand, and crime rate is through the roof. So the people here are suffering. Life here is difficult, but I will also tell you that I come from a place of abundance. I've lived in Austria for most of my life, one of the most pristine, most beautiful countries on this planet. I can tell you that people here in Ecuador are more content, are happier than people in Austria, in the West. Same goes for the US, in my experience.
Yeah.
So, pros and cons to living here, obviously, but I love it. I've I've been nothing but blessed. God brought me here. I now know that because when I first got here, everybody was asking me, "What the hell are you doing? What you have a master's, you have opportunities in Austria. Now you're moving to this third world country to be at a foundation, work with a foundation. What the hell are you doing, giving your life away like that?" I didn't have an answer to that, Anthony, back in those days, like 2019, 2020. I just knew it was the right thing to do. Again, at that point, I didn't even know God, so I couldn't just say, "Oh, God brought me here." I didn't understand, but it just felt like the right thing to do. Uh, I felt like this is what I have to do at this point in my life, and I don't regret taking that step whatsoever. It's brought nothing but blessings to my life. And as I'm saying blessings, it has made my life easier, has made my life more challenging, has given me more responsibilities, more pressure, in many ways, more pain, but also a lot more purpose and a lot more pleasure, you could say.
Pleasure comes with pain, right? Jesus, he carried the cross to his own death, basically. For everything he
Well
did,
said.
you know, he was punished. No good deed goes unpunished.
Mm,
And your purpose is bigger than a degree, than a piece of paper. So if they ask you that
yes, brother.
now, just tell them, my purpose is bigger than 5, 6 years in college.
The, Now they don't ask me anymore, brother. Why? Because they see my life. They see the fruits of my labor. They see how happy and content I am. So anybody still questioning why I do what I do is just it's just blind. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything. It's just you got to look at people's results in life. I'm at 40, I'm the healthiest, the most content, the happiest I've ever been. I have a beautiful wife. I have a child on the way. I couldn't be any happier,
Congratulations.
any more fulfilled. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, man. Being a parent is like it's hard. It's the hardest job in the
Mm,
world, but like I would never trade that job with anybody else, because like being a protector and making sure that person is safe and fed, and making sure they go to sleep on time, or like all of those things, like they're hard but so rewarding at the same time.
mm.
What was life like in Austria growing up?
Brother, it was good. I have no complaints. Like I told you, I was never in like a desperate or miserable situation, thanks to my parents. Like I told you, my parents split up when I was very young, but I grew up with my stepdad, who was and continues to be an amazing father for me, an amazing role model. He taught me what it's like to be a man, and my mom never failed to show me abounding love.
Mm,
So I grew up with so much support. Um, I Life in Austria was good. I just knew it wasn't for me. Maybe in the future, at some point, I will return. I have family there still. I have a lot of friends and good people that I know and appreciate very much in Austria. But I just don't feel like I'm called to go back there anytime soon. I don't know what the future holds. Only God knows.
mm.
But at this point in my life, I'm very content with with who I am and how my life is going here in Ecuador. I will say this though: Austria was a great blessing in so many ways because of great education, very, very high standard of living. And I was just able to pursue the, the mission that God gave me in Austria. I was able to start building my body, start educating myself. I was like 17, 18 years old when I picked up my first books on training and nutrition, and I never stopped. I put in the work over all these years, not to become a coach, to go back to that title. It was simply, I did it for me. It was very selfish. I looked at myself in the mirror and I wasn't happy with what I saw. Um, I grew up in an era where, brother, we had all these role models, the Van Dams, the Chuck Norrises, the Arnolds, the Stallones.
For sure.
As a man, I aspired to be that, you know, um, not to hop on steroids and bodybuild all day. No, but I knew this is what a man's got to be. He's got to be strong. He's got to be what you mentioned earlier, a protector. A man has to be a provider. A man has to be a leader. That's what I aspired towards. And I knew the body was fundamental for that. I knew nobody's going to take me serious if I didn't look the part, if I didn't perform the part. So that got me into bodybuilding, into training, strength training, later on calisthenics. That's what got me into combat training, full contact fighting. I did that for many, many years, simply because I felt like this is what I needed to do. This is who I needed to become. And Austria gave me the right framework, the right environment to be able to do that for many, many years uninterrupted. So no hard feelings whatsoever to my years in Austria. It was just time for another chapter. And I'm glad that chapter for me was Latin America, because it's a lot of fun here. Latin
That
America is a lot of fun.
that's where you were called to be, man. That's where you were called to be.
Amen, brother.
Uh,
Yes.
all right, so speaking of fitness and in your fitness journey, you said it started around 17, 18. You said later on calisthenics. So in the beginning, it was basically more like bodybuilding splits, bodybuilding style workouts.
Both in the sense that I'll break it down for you guys. Well, for you and your listeners, it was, I got like a pair of dumbbells and a barbell that I used in my garage, just, like the most rudimentary workouts, but I always mixed in some calisthenics. I always did my push-ups because I saw my dad doing push-ups, and he had an enormous chest. So I started push-ups, did my curls, obviously got to do the curls.
Curls for
one
the
of the
girls.
one of the most fundamental exercises of my first couple of years of training. Um, and some rows maybe with the barbell, and like very simple exercise that I started doing. I grew bigger, but I still looked like a mess, like I looked like a sack of potatoes. Right around that time, I was like 18, 19. I started going to kickboxing classes. I had some friends in the army that were kickboxing. So I said, you know what? I need to do that. I need to be able to defend myself. I always admired martial artists, always admired, you know, um, action stars who were able to fight, or at least make it look like they knew how to fight. And I was always fascinated by that. Even, as like a young boy, I remember getting my Game Boy. That was like my entry to video games. And the only video games that I was drawn to were like beat 'em ups, like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Streets of Rage, like those um, fighting games. Basically, that's all I wanted to play. If it was like sports or anything else, I was not interested. Mario, Tetris, those games did not interest me. So it was like it was the way I was wired from the beginning. And then, like I said, at 18, 19, I started kickboxing. Then I started Muay Thai kickboxing a year or two later, and that was it for me. That's when I was still working at that time and pursuing an education. Like I went to university, but all I wanted to do was become a fighter at that time. So I was in the gym every single day doing my combat training, cardio on top of that, and then I would also hit like the weights in the afternoon. So I all I wanted to do was get jacked and be deadly, make myself into a weapon.
Being that you were in your combat sports and martial arts, and then you were training in the afternoon, you were lifting weights. How hard were you going? Because they say you don't want to train to failure. You don't want to feel tight, especially when you're in the ring or if you're training your martial art. So, what was your training like? How did you structure the weightlifting with the martial arts?
Yeah, I just went balls to the walls all the time. So I didn't care about, overtraining or being tight or getting too big. The way that I was built structurally, the best thing for me to happen was to get bigger. I needed more size. I needed more strength, and I didn't have the knowledge nor the understanding of how to structure my workouts or how to um, really program in terms of my combat training, cardio, and strength training. I just did everything with as much intensity as I could muster up that given day. And obviously, it wasn't ideal. Many
Yeah.
years during that time, I was overtrained. I had low libido. I had bad recovery. I was undernourished at the same time because I was always trying to follow a specific diet. Like I told you, I was reading all these books, and back in those days, it wasn't social media, but it was books and magazines. So I was reading my bodybuilding or fitness magazines, was reading all these nutrition and training books, and I tried to do everything at the same time. Um, it did a lot, minus get me to the results that I wanted. So it did a lot in a sense that it taught me how to not do it. It taught me a lot about the human machine, uh, how you need to fuel the body, how you need to train, when you need to rest, how you need to rest and recover. Um, but more than anything, it taught me that you need to have a precise game plan and you have to lock in tunnel vision. Don't look left and right. What is Jimmy doing? What's Frankie doing? No, you're just doing your program. You're just following um, your own system, even if somebody else gave you that system, that's what you're working with right now. And you're comparing yourself to last week's results. You're looking at your numbers across the board and you're looking for progression again across the board.
Hmm.
And that's what I started implementing late, late actually. But it was like 5 years into it, I started paying more attention to progressive overload, um, progress in the mirror. Obviously, that was also important to me, and progress in my capacity to sustain performance at a high level, specifically when it comes to high intensity stuff like boxing, kickboxing, being in the ring for 15 minutes. Those things became more and more important to me, and I started paying more and more attention, started listening to the right people, and went went away from the trendy diets, just broke my training down to simple calisthenics in a progressive fashion. Um, After I read Convict Conditioning, that was probably the best book on body weight strength training that I've read so far. Um, that was my style of training going forward. So very basic exercises done with brutal intensity, and not day in day out. I wouldn't kill myself every single day anymore in the gym. Same principles I applied to my boxing training or my Muay Thai training, where I wouldn't go 100% all out every single day because that's hardcore, and I'm tough and I'm hard when I do it that way. And whenever I take a step back or I decrease the intensity, I'm just wasting time. No, I was a lot more pragmatic about it and a lot more results oriented. So I just looked at what I was doing and the results it was producing. And then I adjusted along the way. So yeah, that was that was a lot up
No,
front,
no,
but
it's perfect because you meant I was gonna ask you about your art. You said you got into kickboxing and Muay Thai kickboxing. I actually practice Muay Thai,
mm,
and by the end of the week, I'm cooked. Like between that and training and doing cardio and doing resistance, weight training, I'm more of a functional kind of guy when it comes to moving weight, sandbags, kettlebells, moving with the weight. So
yeah,
I could relate, right? But you said brutal intensity with your calisthenics. Can you be more specific on that?
absolutely, brother. By brutal intensity, I mean that I started doing a handful of sets as opposed to 10, 15, 20 sets per workout. I would just break it down to 4, 5, 6 sets with very high intensity. What I mean by brutal intensity is that
Excuse me.
I took those sets to failure or to the point where my technique would break down. So I didn't waste time just pumping up my muscles with, you know, exercise that I could do for 12, 15, 20, 30 reps. No, I would raise the intensity of those exercises or use more complex exercises. So I would hit failure or technical breakdown of form anywhere between 5 to 10, up to 15 reps on some sets. And then I would not repeat that over and over and over again. I would just go as hard as I could for one set, kick back, take a long rest break, 4 or 5, sometimes 6, 7 minutes, and then do that again. So we're talking one arm push-ups with a weight vest. We're talking handstand push-ups. We're talking uneven pull-ups, where you're literally trying to pull yourself up with just one arm. We're talking pistol squats, shrimp squats, all those beautiful exercises that you can't perform for endless reps. You get to a point where, okay, I can no longer do a picture perfect repetition. And that's it. That's where I cut the set. So brutal in the sense that it was teeth gritting effort every set. But I found that to be way more efficient and way more effective in terms of the results it produced. So instead of hopping from one exercise to the next, from one set to the next, and trying to make sure that I'm only resting for 30 to 60 seconds, I my workouts almost looked lazy, from outside looking in. I did a set and then I took a 5 minute break, did another set, but the results were there, and the results were better than I've ever seen before. So I really fell in love with um, that focus on progression. It was so much more rewarding to be able to do these feats of strength that, a couple months back I wasn't able to do because I just focused on getting a pump, or like just focused on fatiguing a muscle group that I was hitting that day, whether it was chest day or back day or whatever. No, I just here's really what it was. I just chose a handful of exercises and I wanted to get really good at those exercises. Now, the product of doing that, the result of doing that was that I got much bigger and much stronger and much more capable. And so that's when my training philosophy changed completely. So I realized at that point that I can get better results training like this at home or at the neighborhood park. Um, I love to train outside in the fresh air. So I was never a fan of the gym environment to begin with. I loved lifting weights. I loved training hard and training heavy, but I never liked going to the gym really, you know? So for me, that was uh, a major breakthrough that I had like my mid to late 20s when I realized, you know what? I'm getting more jacked banging out these weighted dips to failure and these one arm push ups and other weighted calisthenics that I'd like to do, or even just simple body weight stuff at the neighborhood park. I'm getting better results focusing on these than going to the gym and hitting, incline bench press for the upper chest, or lateral raises to cap the shoulders or whatever. I really lost the desire to do these exercises. Although even today, in the building where I live, I have a fully equipped gym. I sometimes go down there and, hit a couple of bent over rows, hit a couple of curls and tricep extensions. But those are like, those are like dessert. I occasionally have it. It's certainly not what I focus on every day. What I focus on every day is, like I mentioned, a handful of exercises that are mostly body weight. Sometimes I like to slap on some extra weight, use a backpack with some sand in it, or use a weight vest. But I keep it simple. I found for myself that those simple, straightforward workouts produce the best results across the board. And they're more fun to do,
They
more
are.
rewarding too.
I feel like my where I'm like the least injured and I have the best physique. If you want to get back to vanity, it was always with outdoor calisthenics type exercises, body
Mm-hmm.
weight, like you said, just pushing the first set damn near close to failure and praise. Basically, only really just doing two or three of those. And you did mention that in a video on YouTube where you just 2 3 sets, you're banging it out, 20 minutes, you're out. Versus the being in the gym, you might need to be there for 90 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, how did you get into coaching, or why, and why?
Great question. It was just something that, again, at some point in my life, I realized, oh, you're really good at this. At some point, to be very honest with you, I realized, you know what? This is the only thing you're really good at. So this was a critical time in my life because I had just finished my master's in business, and I was about to go down the corporate, or go up the corporate ladder, if you will, go down that same 9 to 5 road, like
Yeah.
most of my peers, most people that I know. And again, this is not to disrespect anyone or shit on anyone. You do what you got to do. I just
Right.
realized
Mhm.
for me, this I could never do that. Not long term, not successfully. I could make a decent living, but I would hate every 24-hour cycle doing it. So this was right around the time I hit 30. I realized, you know what, I'm just going to start writing down my thoughts on training. Initially, it was just pen and paper. Then I said, you know what, I'm going to put these online, create my own website, put these things online, see what happens. Not much happened, brother, because I never like, you know how you hear about these people starting to upload and then all of a sudden they get like millions of views and thousands of clicks and likes and whatnot. I never really got any validation from outside, you know, until a couple years ago. But I always knew this is what I have to do. This is what I'm really good at. This is what will serve a lot of people in the future. If not now, in the future, this will be of service to a lot of people. Because if I would have had access to my website, to my videos on YouTube, if I would have had that information at the time that I was 18, 19, 20 years of age starting out, it would have saved me a decade. It would have saved me 15 years. If I would have had access to that stuff, even in my late 20s, it would have saved me at least another 5, 6 years of just banging my head against the wall. So I knew this is what I got to do, and this is what I love to do. And this is something that I could take to the highest level, to an elite
Unlimited.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Unlimited.
So I just asked myself, I was always very competitive, Anthony. I just asked myself, um, could I really be good at this office job? Could I really be good at working in a cubicle? The answer was no. The answer was no from the get-go. Then I asked myself, could I develop this skill of coaching and this knowledge on nutrition and training that I have? Could I develop it to the utmost, the highest level, and be the best in the world at this? And my answer was yes. Now, I didn't know how hard it would be, how difficult it would be, but that's all I wanted to do from then on out. I knew this is my life from here on out. Again, people started asking, why are you doing this? Why are you not making more money working this job or doing that? And I said, because I hate it. This is what I must do. Again, this was before I knew God. So now I know this is what he had in store for me. I just couldn't point the finger and say, oh, this is Jesus is doing. This is God's plan.
You know
But
what it
now I
is?
know.
He leads the way, you know? So, I lost my train of thought with that one.
He leads the
Listen,
way, brother, but
peep,
it's on us to walk it. This is
exactly,
what a lot of,
exactly.
let's say, spiritual people or religious people have backwards. They think, oh, I believe in God, or I believe in Jesus, or whomever. But they don't live it. They're
Definitely.
hypocritical
Very.
about everything they do. And that's what pushes people away from God. You know, that's what pushes spectators, other people in your life, away from faith or from religion. Why? Because they see you. They see you talk the talk, but you're not walking it. You're not a man of action. You're not a woman of action. Unfortunately, that's all of us at some points in our
Hmm.
lives. But just got to put in the work, you know,
It
listen to that calling and then walk down that path.
it's also those same people that are asking you why you're doing this. Why don't you go here to make more money? Those people are insecure, and they don't have what it takes, so they're just too scared to take the leap to go after what they want. That's gonna make them truly happy, you
Hmm.
know. And those are the same people that are kind of like one foot in, one foot out, because when things happen to them, they ask themselves, why is this happening to me versus why is this happening for me in their favor? Whether it's good or bad, you just have to see it as a positive, you know?
Spot on. It, brother, it just takes balls.
Yeah, that's
It
it.
takes balls, not just to live this life purposefully, but truly to follow God's plan. It takes balls because people left and right will try and talk
Yeah,
you out of it. What do
definitely.
you, again, like when I came here to Ecuador, everybody trying to talk some sense into me, not knowing that this is the path that I had to walk. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
my blessing, brother, was that I never, I never really cared about what other people thought about me. You know, I always wanted to be a badass. Yes, I wanted to be respected. I wanted to, I wanted to be seen as a leader, but I never really cared if somebody respected me or not, or saw me as this or that. I didn't. I always knew I gotta listen to that voice.
Hmm.
I gotta follow this path. I gotta be true to myself, not to somebody else, not to my parents, not to my friends, not to my girlfriend, you know, true
You
to
know,
myself.
yeah. If
And
if
this
you're
is
if
what led me here.
you're not true to yourself, then you're never gonna truly find that purpose. You know, when you
100%.
when you're so you got recent stories that you posted about results, right, from your clients. Now, are these results based on the way they're training? Are they fasting? Are they doing one meal a day? Is it nutritional? Is it training? Is it both? And they're pretty fast results, by the way.
Yeah, crazy results. Yeah. It's the program. Short answer, it's the program. It's everything. Now, in terms of when what I show mostly is fat loss results because that's what most people are after. And that's what most people are inspired by to see like a massive before and after. Um, and those are driven first and foremost by diet. So when we're talking
Definitely.
physical transformation, when we're talking fat loss, yes, you have training, you have cardio, um, you have sleep, rest and recovery, which is very, very important. You know, you have sunlight exposure. All these things matter and they factor in. But we're talking the biggest piece of the pie being nutrition,
Hmm.
quite literally. It is very, very important to understand, to learn and understand how to fuel the human body for your goals, and then to apply relentlessly. How do I apply relentlessly? Why is that important? Because I can tell you in 20 minutes how to eat to lose fat really fast. But if you're not able to seamlessly work that into your lifestyle, into your day to day, you're not going to last. You're not going to make it. And it's even even though my clients see massive results in the first couple of days and weeks, they're not going to get to the destination within a couple of weeks, within a couple of months even, you know? So you can move fast, and I always emphasize the importance to move fast because nothing will motivate you, nothing will inspire you to keep going more than the results that you see in the mirror, the results that you see in the gym. But at the end of the day, you got to look at it with a long view. You got to look at it as a lifestyle. How will I be able to maintain this for the next 20, 30 years, the next 50 years? And yes, you mentioned OMAD, 1 meal a day. You mentioned fasting. This is one of the tools that I found for, well, I found to work very well for my lifestyle, for my habits, and for the way that I want to live, for the man that I want to be. This is a tool that I can employ every day for the rest of my days.
Hmm.
I know this because I've done this on and off for over 6 years. So I can tell you that most people, 99% of people, will never need more than 1 meal a day to sustain maximum performance and to build muscle over time. Now, when I say need, that doesn't factor in their preferences, their lifestyle, their daily habits. So maybe somebody wants to eat multiple meals a day, and I'm completely fine with that. Again, what are you after? What do you want? And how do you want to live this life? You have to combine those two things. It can't just be, oh, I want to be ripped. I want to have a six pack. I want to have, you know, chiseled pecs and biceps, but I have to eat 6 meals of chicken and broccoli for the rest of my days. And whenever I get off track and one of those meals is cheesecake as opposed to chicken and broccoli, I lose all my gains, or I lose my definition, or I lose my abs. That's misery. That is
It,
misery.
it messes with your head for sure.
It messes with your head in so many ways.
Hmm.
And it makes you believe that this is the only way to achieve results, when in reality, it's not. You can make this very rewarding. You can make this very enjoyable. You can actually make this process very fun. This is what I try to communicate through my videos, through my posts online. I try to show people that I'm having a blast doing this. My clients are having a blast doing this, and they're getting crazy results. Now, as I'm saying this, Anthony, having a blast to me doesn't mean that it's easy. Doesn't mean that I'm eating burgers and fries and milkshakes and brownies every day. Doesn't mean that I'm stuffing my face every day, morning to sundown, because that's what having a blast is to me. No, having a blast in a sense that I know that this is what I must do. And it's actually very, very rewarding to do it. Whether that's 1 meal a day, whether that's some prolonged fasting here and there that I love to do, whether that's my outlook on how to combine foods and how to, dial in your macros for your goals. I love every day of this process, even if some days are very, very difficult, very challenging, no doubt. I love this process because it makes me into the man that I always wanted to be. It builds my body, it builds my mind, it builds this capacity to perform and to sustain performance at a high level, mentally and physically. So I'm loving this. And the results that you see from my clients is first and foremost because they enjoy this and they're able to sustain it. And yeah, so again, it's the program. Everything has to be factored in: nutrition, training, and everything around that.
That speaking, like you said, nutrition. Like, are you giving them any nutritional advice? Or do you have them fasting? Do you have them doing 1 meal a day as part of as part of like the program as a whole?
Absolutely. But again, we got to look at the results.
Yeah.
We got to look at the goals and how do we get to those goals. So what is it my client wants? Let's say somebody is skinny fat, wants to drop some body fat and build muscle simultaneously. And then once they get to the point where they're lean, they're ripped, how do we reverse back up without gaining a bunch of fat? This is a very common client, common issue or challenge that I'm facing. And I give them obviously very, very detailed instructions when it comes to the nutrition, but there's also a lot of individual leeway, individual freedom in how they use the strategies and tactics that I give them. Now, we talked about OMAD, 1 meal a day, and I said something very controversial, I guess you could say, that nobody really needs more than 1 meal a day. What I mean by that is you can completely fill up on nutritious foods within a 60 to 90-minute time frame. That's not one plate of food. That's not what I mean when I say OMAD. It's more of a 1 to 3, up to 4 hours of eating, a feeding window at some point in the day. For me and most of my clients, it's late in the day. That just seems to work best in terms of habit formation, in terms of lifestyles, in terms of responsibilities they have, personal or professional. It just seems to work best and be the most enjoyable way to do it. So, yes, I give them very detailed instructions, but I also teach them how to do this in a way that works best for them, their responsibilities, their lifestyles, and the things that they want to do ultimately. What do you want to do? How do you want to live this life? You only get one shot at this.
Yep,
How do you want to do this? Now, for me, Anthony, I love going hungry throughout the day. I love keeping my food intake to a minimum throughout the day and then just eating big, eating like a king, feasting really at night. Why do I love this? Because it keeps me very sharp throughout the day. It keeps me focused on the important things that I need to get done every single day. And it doesn't take away from my time because, oh, I got to prep another meal. I got to eat. I got to wash dishes, whatever.
stressful.
Or I got to go out to buy food. No, none of that. I got to get my client work done, my content creation. I got to get my workouts in. I got to get additional stuff at the foundation in my personal life, take care of my beautiful wife, whatever her needs are that day. I got to be able to fulfill those. And I see that as my primary objective, not eating perfect macros throughout the day so that I have the perfect set of abs the following day. No, that's trivial to me. That's important because it is my job. I need to look a certain way, but it's not what drives me and what drives my nutrition even. So I found for myself, if I stay hungry throughout the day, I'm my sharpest, I'm my best, I enjoy this life the most. Bottom line, brother. I enjoy this life the most, specifically when I then come home late at night and I'm just able to eat without restriction,
Yeah.
really fill up and have a dessert here and there, have a gin tonic or have a bottle of beer here and there on occasion and not be restricted, not be tied down by all these rules that we have in this game of nutrition. No, I I reversed it. I make the rules work for me. I make God's rules and physics and thermodynamics work for me. Now, there's a lot of controversy out there about fasting, about meal frequency, protein synthesis, the hormonal system, testosterone. I, you know, I always tell people look at the results.
Mhm.
Look at the results. If it works for you, if it produces the results that you want, what else is there? You need some science geek to hold your hand and tell you this is the best way to do it. This is optimal. I don't care about any of that. I want to look a certain way, perform a certain way, at the end of the day, feel a certain way. And this is what I found for me to work the best. Um, Again, give credit where credit is due. This is, and in my personal journey here, this I give the credit to Ori Hofmeckler, the creator and author of the Warrior Diet,
Yeah, I
a
heard
book
of him.
that came out a book that came out in the early 2000s. When I read that, it completely changed my paradigm. Completely changed my paradigm. And when I started implementing, it clicked. You remember when I told you I was reading the Bible voraciously and then one day it clicked? Same thing with the OMAD. I tried it for a couple of weeks and then I said, you know what? I'm never going back. This is the real deal. Unfortunately for me, I had some moments of doubt where I did allow myself to get off track because people told me this can't be good for you. You're developing metabolic disorder or an eating disorder, whatever. You're going to waste away and be a skeleton and famished and all that. I let those doubts creep in when I was like in my late 20s, and I went off that diet. But luckily for me, I returned to it like 5.5 years ago, and I'm never going back. This is it for me. I know this works, and now I also have the client roster
Yeah.
to experiment with, and I know it works across the board, not just for yours truly, works across the board if some fundamental principles are adhered to.
The modern human being, right? We've become slaves to consumption, right? Consuming food, how much protein you're getting, you got to get 1 pound per body weight. You have to get this much fat. Is horrible. Now, what about male versus female? How are you? Because fasting for a man is, I believe, I don't know this for a fact. It might be different for a woman, especially when they're in their menstrual cycle. So how are you implementing how are you programming that for a woman versus a man?
Yeah,
Nutrition,
great
nutrition
question.
and fitness.
Great question. I'm I let them decide
Okay.
and let them experiment with different fasting protocols and see what works best for them. I also understand that because of the menstrual cycle of females, their hormones are all over the place, so they can't just follow the same routine day in, day out. They have to be a little bit more flexible. But same rules apply still. You have to go hungry if you want to burn fat. You have to go through phases of deprivation and phases of compensation. Now, how that looks for each individual can be completely different. For some females, it can be 3 meals a day. A lot of females I know for a fact do great on 1 meal a day. I'd be more concerned with the prolonged fasting, but even if that is done following certain guidelines and principles, I see no issue with it. A lot of people, specifically females, get hung up on this idea of prolonged
Yeah.
fasting. Oh, it's going to mess up your hormones.
Mhm.
Come on, like in our evolutionary history, there were times when even females had to go days, sometimes weeks without food. Now, was this optimal for metabolic function? Maybe not. It brought you into this fight or flight survival.
Of the fittest.
Absolutely, but this survival branch of
Mhm.
your autonomic nervous system. However, you still made it out alive. If you didn't, we wouldn't be here as a species. If fasting was so detrimental to metabolic function, to muscle mass, and to hormonal function, we wouldn't be around. No, it's actually I do believe, and I'll die on that hill, that fasting is a must for everyone. Why do I say that, brother? Because the Bible says it.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't talk about intermittent or prolonged fast. The Bible doesn't say eat 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and, half a gram of fat per body weight. No, but the Bible says you have to fast. Jesus specifically in the book of Matthew said, when you fast, and then he gave certain guidelines. It wasn't so much about the macros, about a certain physiological outcome. It was about a spiritual outcome in the Bible. But bottom line is, he gave us he gave us this tool, and he said, use it. He didn't say, oh, if you guys ever feel like fasting, here's what I would do. No, he said, when you fast, and that when you fast implies a need to fast, implies that this is actually a must for everyone who follows in Jesus' footsteps. Now, luckily for us, Jesus also didn't say you got to fast for 40 days and 40 nights like he did in the wilderness, you know, and only to be then after those imagine that after those 40 days and 40 nights, he wasn't welcomed with a big feast. He was then tempted by the devil. He
Hmm.
then had to go through the most difficult trials and the hardest temptations to deal with. Um, so this is what it is. I understand this as a must for every human being. Now, how you use this strategy, how you employ this and make it part of your lifestyle depends on you and your goals and your environment.
It's funny because people would ask me because I would fast too. I do like maybe like multi-day fast or I fast till later on in the day. But oh, why do you fast? You're already skinny. But it's like I'm not fasting to lose weight. I'm fasting for mental clarity, not just up here, but also in my gut. Which is where a lot of your decision making comes from. People just fail to understand that. But I do want to dive deeper into fasting because I know you did the alternate day fasting in January. But I do want to ask you about your own personal training, the way you train. Like, what does your training look like in a week?
All right. So I just do something every single day. And at this point, I'm not resistance training every single day of the week, but I would say most days I get a workout in. And that can look different every single day. I don't follow a specific plan necessarily. I don't follow um, a very rigid program for myself anymore because it's simply not necessary and I don't enjoy it anymore. I don't need it to get the outcomes that I want anymore. But I will say this, I have, like I mentioned earlier, just a handful of exercises in my arsenal, and I work on becoming more proficient with those exercises. So I mentioned one arm push-ups, I mentioned handstand push-ups, I mentioned different pulling and horizontal and vertical pulling exercises. I just try to become really good at those exercises and take my body to the limit when I'm performing those exercises. I don't really care about the optimal number of sets and reps that I need to get in every day or in a weekly cycle or monthly cycle. I don't periodize my program anymore in advance. I just, when I realize I'm burned out, I take a couple days off or I just lower the intensity for a couple workouts and then I'm back to balls to the wall training where I'm, at close to max intensity in my workouts. Brother, I just love to work out. At this point for me, I need it for the energy rush that I get from workouts. I need it for the mental clarity. I need it for the aesthetic goals that I'm pursuing. I just needed to live. And I'm so grateful that in my 20 plus years of training, I've never had an injury, a serious injury that took me out of the game for a couple of weeks. Thank God. That would be miserable for me because I'd have to find other means of getting those benefits that I get from training. I was just mentioning to my wife we were um, going for a quick walk before I hopped on this pod with you, and I told her that before that walk, I got in like a brief 20-minute session in at the gym, and it was very intense. And I told her I got such a massive rush from this workout, like my mindset and the way that I felt before that workout and after that workout were completely different, like polar opposites. I was slightly anxious. I was slightly doubtful before I hit the gym. I felt like an Adonis and a machine and a gorilla after that workout. And so positive too, not just the physical. I just felt like I was in such good spirits. So I know that I need that training. And that's also what got me to train so frequently to the point where for many years I was training every day. I was doing intense resistance training, very low volume, but very high frequency. Every day I was in the gym banging out my reps. Um, Now over the last 6 months, I would say I've given myself the liberty to take a couple days off whenever I need them, or to not do a resistance workout, but just to do some boxing and maybe some burpees until I'm smoked, or just play soccer with the kids at our foundation and exert myself in that way, and still get those benefits, cognitive and physical, that I get from training that way.
There's some.
So I,
Go ahead.
yeah, sorry for interrupting
No, no,
you.
it's all good.
There's no rigid protocol that I follow, but I will say this: I focus on one main exercise per workout. So, like I told you, I don't do tens and tens of sets or even exercises. I just focus on one main exercise and try to one up myself in that exercise. Everything else in that workout is just bonus for me. So let's just take today's workout. I did some weighted lunges. That was my main exercise. I tried to one up myself in comparison to the weighted lunges that I did 2 weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks since I did some weighted lower body training because I've been so active with my soccer that my legs were just smoked. So usually I would do that, like a heavy resistance workout for my lower body, for my legs, once a week. And I was able to do another rep, 2 reps actually, with those weighted lunges. And then I did some pull-ups to fatigue. And that was it, brother. Those 2 exercises, that was it. Oh no, hold on. After the pull-ups, I did one set of rows close to failure. That was it.
I feel like when you're simplifying your workout, when it's maybe 20 minutes or when it's like one body part focus, I find those to be the most enjoyable
Mm.
versus say you have a 45-minute, you're planning 45 minutes in the gym and you want to hit like every muscle in your bicep and every muscle in your tri, oh, whatever. I just feel personally like those 20-minute workouts, there's just another level of endorphin release, you know?
Absolutely. And you can do them at any point in your day. Early
Exactly.
morning,
Exactly.
during your lunch break, late afternoon when you come home from work. It's just that freedom to just insert those workouts strategically whenever you want to. And occasionally, brother, I like to do multiple 20-minute, 15, 20-minute workouts a day, sometimes twice, sometimes even 3 times a day. Why? Because I enjoy it. It's what I like and enjoy to do. And then occasionally I don't work out for an entire 24-hour cycle. So it's not rigid, it's not set in stone at this point. I just focus on one main exercise and I focus on getting stronger over the weeks. This is also something that will keep you in the game, keep you interested, keep you engaged for
Definitely.
years to come. Years to come. It's like a video game character that you're leveling up. Oh, last month I was able to do 20 push ups. This month I'm already up to 26. Crazy, you know? Who knows what I'm able to do next month? I might be able to get to uneven push-ups. And then maybe in like 2, 3, 4 months, I might be able to bang out my first set of one-arm push-ups. Isn't that exciting? That's what keeps me in the game after all these years. I just want to get better.
Hell yeah. I do got to ask you this, right? Your YouTube channel, your header, right? It says, get in world beater shape, right? Without equipment, dieting, supplements, and powders. So, do you or have you ever got sucked into this whole supplement thing? Or do you supplement? Do you take any powders? Go ahead.
Yeah, to answer your first question, absolutely, brother. We all did at some point, I believe.
Yeah,
And there's no shame in admitting it.
for
You know,
sure.
when I was in my early 20s and I told you I got into combat sports, weightlifting in the gym, all that, um, I also worked at a supplement store,
Mm.
biggest supplement store in Austria back in those days. And with that, I had access to all the supplements you could think of, legal and illegal.
I bet.
But I never went down the illegal route. I'll tell you that. Um, so I just tried a bunch of stuff, from very questionable supplements to your standard, creatine and multivitamins and minerals and all that. I experimented like a madman for 3 years straight, 3 years straight. And I can tell you, if they ever did anything, which they did, but if they ever did anything, it was minimal. And it was so little, in fact, that I would just not want to bother with those things anymore. It's just something I can check off and not have to think about anymore. Also, what I realized during those 3 years of heavy, heavy experimenting with the different compounds and supplements is that they make you mentally dependable.
Mhm.
They make you think that, oh, if I don't take my creatine, I can't perform at this level. I can't, I probably can't push for another PR because I forgot to take my pre-workout. I didn't take my amino acids. I didn't take my protein, whatever. At this point, I don't even use protein powder anymore, although I'm not opposed to it whatsoever. I think creatine and protein powder, if you want to do supplements, those two are safe bets. Um, there might be, a couple other supplements that are worth looking into, but I don't want to have to deal with any of those. There's only one exception, and this is very recent that I looked at the blood work of one of my clients, and his vitamin D levels were in the gutter, in the gutter. I told him, get out more. Obviously, number one, like allow your skin to produce some vitamin D by getting out into the sun. Even when the sun's not shining, like right here is overcast, the sun is still shining.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
just takes a little
uh,
longer to absorb it.
exactly, exactly. So get out into the fresh air, like everybody.
Yeah, you have to.
Regardless of where your vitamin D levels are. But
Mhm.
I also put them on like a supplement regimen. I told him supplement with vitamin D3 and K2 with the drops specifically at this amount until you see your levels at this range, or within that range. So there are exceptions here and there. If you get a blood panel done, which I recommend most people do at least once a year, then you can supplement whatever is lacking. If there's a deficiency, you know, get your zinc levels up, get your vitamin D levels up. Whatever is lacking, you can compensate with supplements. But other than that, just throwing different supplements at your body, I don't see the point anymore. And I'm certainly never gonna go down that road again. I can tell you because I've experienced it. The the benefits you get from creatine, the benefits you get from amino acids from pre-workout, other than a massive high you get from some pre-workouts, I did enjoy that. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, the benefits are just negligible, tiny,
Also expensive.
also expensive. Yeah,
Very. Let's get into fasting. We talked a lot about fasting before, but more specifically, your January alternate day fasting, where you basically did every other day. Tell me what that was like. You said I saw a video where you posted you still felt strong, but maybe you think you said you felt a little flatter, but just talk about that. What was that
yeah.
experience like?
So in January, what I did was alternate day fasting throughout the week. So um, either Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would fast. Some weeks it was Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. But usually I would fast 3 days during the week, and then on the weekends I would just allow myself to eat. Keep in mind that even on the days where I ate, I only ate in a very compressed time frame. So we're talking 2 to 4 hours max where I would eat. So still OMAD. Um, I did that for multiple reasons, but main reason is I just wanted another challenge with her. Like for me, that alternate day fasting month of January, it was just another step up to what I was already doing beforehand. I already loved my 48s. I already did the one meal a day, but that month of January, I just wanted to kick things up into high gear.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, it was very challenging at times, but ultimately extremely rewarding.
I
I would
bet.
do it again in a heartbeat. I loved that month of January and how I felt, how I performed. Um, and yes, at the end of the 4 weeks, I looked a little flatter, but I can tell you, I haven't lost any strength. And now, after a couple of weeks of refeeding and just, eating every day, I've regained all that lost glycogen, or, people might speculate and say lost muscle. I don't believe in that at all, because my performance was just through the damn roof, mentally and physically, which blew my mind. I thought I was going to lose muscle, and I was going to lose just overall energy, overall joy. But it was the other way around. This is the crazy part. The more I pushed the fasting, the better I felt. It's crazy. So, it's one of those things that people just have to experience. Now, do you have to do the alternate day fasting? Probably not, especially when you're somewhat lean like we are. Then you don't have to. But also understand, I love that you mentioned this earlier, understand that fasting is not about getting skinny or losing body fat. It can be used as a fat loss tool, very, very effective fat loss tool, but it's so much more than that. The mental clarity, the sharpness that I had during that month, the overall mood that I had, it was glorious. Now, with all those benefits that I mentioned, why wouldn't you do this indefinitely? Because it's not socially fun to always tell people that you're not eating, you can't partake in this or that because you're you're fasting. I can do that during the day. I have no problem with that. Tell people I'm not eating breakfast, I'm not eating lunch. I'm so used to that, and my people are so used to me here, to hearing me say that. So that's not an issue anymore. But to go for days back to back without food, and then to always have decline invitations, that's not a lot of fun. But if I were to live on an island, I could do this, brother, for months on end, no problem, until I get prison camp lean, and I just decide, you know what, it's time to bulk up again, and build some more muscle. But other than that, it was an eye-opening experience, and I invite anyone, regardless of body fat percentage, regardless of where you are in this fitness journey, I invite anyone to experiment with some prolonged fasting. Do a 48, start with a 24,
Mm-hmm.
24 hour of
Yeah.
basically water fasting, then do a 48. um, I never did like these week-long fasts. I just found that after that 48-hour mark, actually after like 40 hours, I find that fasting loses a lot of its benefits. Now, a lot of scientists might dispute me and say that no, it's only after 48 or 72 or 96 hours that you get these like deep autophagy effects. No, 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 no. Brother, believe me, when you're doing such frequent 48s,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting all the autophagy that you need. I The best my skin has ever looked in my life was this month of January. I had like the cleanest skins, the cleanest skin, and I looked younger. Bottom line, I looked younger, so I know it works across the board. And the reason I did frequent 48s as opposed to doing just like a long fast, do like a 14-day fast, because at the end of 31 days in January, I fasted for 14 days. So I could have just done those back to back, but I wanted to stay physical. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
stay strong. I I wanted to be there for my clients 100% mentally. So I didn't know about a 14-day fast, other than the fact that I would get so tired, and occasionally moody, that I didn't want to do this, with my clients, or my wife, or the people at our foundation, the kids at our foundation. I didn't want to subject them to that. So I said, I'm going to do the 48s because I know these work so well that there are no mood swings during a 48, especially if you're used to doing them. There are no highs and lows during a 48. I just feel stable. Now, do I have like a minor hunger pang every now and then? Yeah, sure, but it's gone after like a couple minutes. Now, do I want to eat something just to get my dopamine levels up? Absolutely. but I can control it and wait another couple hours until I break my fast. So I just found that this alternate day fasting works very well with my lifestyle. I still got it in the gym, and intensity was still very high, very very high. Some of the best workouts I've had in recent memory were in that month of alternate day fasting.
Yeah, I agree because the most I've done as well, just purely water, was 48 hours. If I want to do something extended, it's usually going to be like maybe I'll just do 7 days of fruit only, because fruit is also can flush you out, clean your system, keep you mentally clear. Are you putting salt or you just doing straight up water for 48 hours?
Great question. Yes. I'm glad you got to that because I completely forgot. So I am drinking water. I am adding a little bit of salt to that water. And I'm drinking black coffee as well during my 48s. I just find it makes it a lot more fun.
Hmm.
Easier, yes, but way more enjoyable because then I can literally, through my caffeine consumption, dictate how my energy is going to be. And some people will say, oh, you're losing some fasting benefits. I might lose, 0.001 of fasting benefits by using caffeine. I don't care. In the big picture, this makes it way more enjoyable for me, way more sustainable. Same thing with on days where I felt like I really needed something, I would sip on some pickle juice.
Oh yeah,
Now,
yeah.
as you
Hear about
probably
that.
know, pickle juice is not just high in salt. A lot of manufacturers also put some sugar in it. I didn't care about that. I might have consumed, 5 to 10 calories of pickle juice on some fasting days. I don't care about these details. I also tell people on my program, go ahead and put some milk in your coffee if you want to, sip on some pickle juice like Uncle Vic likes to do. Um, eat, chew on some sugar-free gum.
Hmm. Yeah,
Don't eat the whole pack. Have like,
helps curb your
two
hunger.
pieces of absolutely. And
Hmm.
also, again, makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like there is a time and place for dialing up the suffering to the max, dry fasting, where you're basically consuming nothing. I've
Air.
done that plenty times.
Yeah.
Air, yeah. And also dialing it up even further by fasting off social media, off TV, off any entertainment, music, um, and you're basically just left with your own thoughts. That's maximum suffering, but the reward on the other end is also maximum. It's wonderful. The compensation, if you're able to go through that suffering and that self-denial is massive. That's just how God created us. um, and that's, to not go into the spiritual here, that's just how our brain is wired. The dopamine system, the reward system in our brain is put together. So yeah, I did use some salt, but I'm not like using these electrolyte packets, or I'm not super focused on making sure the electrolyte balance is perfect. No, whenever I feel like the water is not hydrating anymore, like it just runs through my body, I add some extra salt to it. You know, whenever I feel like a headache might be coming on, I might sip on some pickle juice.
Hmm.
Very simple.
Yeah. Yeah. My thing is squeeze some lemon and some water during that time. I do want to.
Helps,
Yeah.
and it feels like you're drinking a soda pop
Hmm.
on a water fast.
Exactly. I want to talk about real quick about basically physical readiness. You mentioned your martial arts history, being into it for so many years, and just as men, one of the biggest things that we should be doing as men, aside from serving, is being protectors and providers, right? So, what? Why do you think, in your opinion, it's so important as a man to be able to protect and defend not just yourself but those around
So many reasons, brother. But just the fact, right out the gate, a man's got to be prepared for everything. A man has to be able to solve problems in every scenario. Now, also physically, in my mind, men have to be able to defend themselves and their loved ones. Bible is very clear on that. Now, Bible doesn't tell us to go out and kick butts on the streets or to, become proficient martial artists, but it shows us that one of the facets of being a man is to be a protector. It's just something we got to do. And how you, again, like with the fasting, like with the training, how you choose to employ this in your life can look very different. For me, I always loved martial arts. Now, some people are like absolute gun nerds. They get into the crazy details of shootouts. Being able to use a gun, take it apart, put it back together, and use it in life or death scenario. For me, again, I always had a lot of admiration, a lot of respect for people who were strong physically, who were able to do crazy feats of strength with their bodies, but also for people who were able to defend themselves, kick ass in a ring. Back in my day, it was Muay Thai training, and it was going out to competitions every couple of weeks. Well, not weeks, but every couple of months on a regular basis. We would, take the little bus from our what do you call it, our gym, and we would drive around the country and compete at local events. So I had back then always admiration, great respect for people who were able to step into a ring and not shit themselves, like be able to maintain their composure, because
sure.
a lot goes into that. This is like a mental roller coaster, having to face a man in a ring in hand-to-hand combat. This is like crazy intense. And my hat goes off to anyone who has the balls to do that, especially when they're able to do that at a high level. So you got to be prepared. Got to be prepared. What martial art is the best? Which one should you choose? Again, that depends. Personally, I never got into wrestling or jiu-jitsu because it was not something that drew me in. It was not something that looked attractive, looked badass or anything. It's just a bunch of sweaty dudes rolling around on the floors, which I know these dudes can be lethal. These dudes can wreck somebody in a matter of seconds. However, it was never something that I was drawn to. I always liked boxing. I was like I mentioned earlier, martial arts, fighting. So I like the kicking aspect of it. I like the fact that you could use all your limbs to defend yourself. It just looked badass, and the results were also badass. What do I mean by that? It gives you a certain confidence to just walk down a street by yourself with your people, specifically in a country that's not safe, like Ecuador. Say what you will, but Ecuador is not safe. It's very, very, very likely for you to, after, well, it depends on what neighborhoods you're in, but it's very likely for people to be eyeing you as a piece of prey when you walk down some of these neighborhoods here. So people can smell whether you're a victim or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that confidence because you can defend yourself, you're not going to lose your composure if somebody jumps at you, or if somebody, even pulls a knife at you. It's not going to be like, oh no, you're still calm and collected. That doesn't mean you engage in a knife fight or in a gunfight. No, but you are still calm and collected. So you give the guy whatever he wants, either that, option A or option B. If it's possible, you run away. obviously when somebody is armed, you don't want to be so blockheaded, so stupid and proud that you want to engage in a fight for what? For a couple of bucks for your phone? Really? Is it that serious? And as I'm saying this, I'm actually talking to myself because I'm very hot-headed in those situations, and I remember not too long ago, this was like in 2020 or 2021. I got mugged in a park by four knife-wielding guys. I got into a scuffle with them immediately. When I saw they had knives, I I actually initiated the fight. Not something I recommend anybody do. And I got my ass whooped because I ended up on my back and I had four knife wielding thugs on top of me. And God was merciful that day and I wasn't injured. But it was a good lesson for me. No, what I mean is that still, even with that incident 2, 3 years ago, I walk down these streets like I'm Godzilla. I don't care about anyone or any situation. Nothing can take my calm and my composure away from me. This is something that you cannot get without some level of expertise in combat sports or in hand-to-hand fighting. Impossible. Also, it can make you too confident sometimes, too calm. Like I was in a park when I was assaulted by four guys, and I thought I'm going to kick your asses instead of just running off. I had all the time in the world to just run off. I didn't, but that's a story for another day. Um, Now, I want to be very clear. The fact that you're able to defend yourself doesn't mean that you should be stupid and ask for trouble on the streets. Not at all. It just it's just again, like I mentioned earlier, one of the facets of a man. You need to be physically strong. You need to be able to use this body, not just in the gym lifting some dumbbells. You need to be capable. You need to be, like I said in one of my posts the other day, you need to be lethal. You need to be able to take somebody else's life if your life depends on it, if your family's lives depend on it.
I mean, yeah, that's the history of man. Growing up, they they training to fight since they were kids, all the way up until adulthood. You were basically bred to be a warrior back then, but now we're so
Exactly.
we live in domesticated times. But like that's another conversation for another day. But I have a do you being who you are, a confident man, you work out, you carry yourself well, you can handle yourself and you're very much capable. You're situationally aware. You walk into a room. For me, the way I look at things is I look around the room and I see who if something was to go down, who in this room is gonna go get after it? Who in this room is gonna pop off basically? If something was to go down. When I say go down, I don't mean me and you fighting each other. I say maybe some crazy person with a gun comes in, right? This man has his hands in his pocket. Does he have a gun, or is he just not physically prepared, right?
I see.
Or
I
or
see.
this man has a weak physical disposition. You walk into a room, you see a man just like yourself, confident, he's aware, and then you see another man, weak physical disposition, not paying attention. Maybe his head is in his phone. What are your thoughts when you walk into a room?
Wow. I I love this question, but the answer might disappoint you. I really don't think like that when I enter a room. I'm not like in this combat mode 24/7. Um, I'm actually in that combat mode way too frequently. I'd like to be a little bit more laid back. I'd like to be a little bit, how should I say? We say here in Latin America, más tranquilo.
Mhm.
Why? Because if you're always on edge, if you're always that um, observational and always calculating in your mind, each and every scenario, it does something to you. It
It does.
it
It does.
it does something to you in the sense that you don't become um, socially compatible anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. I was more like that specifically in my 20s when martial arts were everything that I wanted to do. Competing and beating other men was everything I wanted to do. Now I just don't care anymore. You know, it's like you have to come at me to get a response from me. I'm not going to look whether you're capable to defend yourself or not. I really don't care. I don't. I have so many things on my mind that I don't have the energy to spare. You know,
For
and
sure.
that's not to say that um, you shouldn't look at your surroundings and you shouldn't be prepared for every scenario. That's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, I'm warning people to not become paranoid to the point where they're trying to calculate every different situation and trying to um, have an answer for every scenario. I don't think that's like it's going to make you a cool guy to hang around.
Hey, I mean, I'm a work in progress, right? So like
We all are, brother.
the way I grew up, right? Without getting into too much detail, like my father was always that guy that was always just like s- one of those people, like just ready to go, right? He was a man of action, ready for war.
Mm,
And then I grew up in a neighborhood where it was pretty much the same thing, and I was the youngest of four brothers who pretty much were all the same way. So like that's why like now to this day I'm like more spiritually connected. I fast and I keep my mind clear and
mm.
I try to eat as clean as possible. I know you eat whatever you want, but like for me, it's like if I'm eating this way, I'm more compassionate. I'm more empathetic and stuff like that. But
Beautifully
yeah,
said.
anyways,
Beautifully
but
said. What? Let me just interject real quick. When I say I eat whatever I want, I mean that 100%, but that doesn't mean I'm eating, burgers and fries and cakes and ice cream and donuts every day. You know, what it means is that I do not deny myself any food group, any macronutrient, any meal really. You know, um, that means that when I'm invited to somebody's dinner, I will eat whatever they serve me. That means that when I cook for myself, or when my wife prepares me a meal, I don't restrict the things that she can cook or I can cook. What it means is that I eat the things that my body's telling me to eat, and
yeah,
those are mostly clean foods. Those I enjoy clean foods way more. And I hate using that terminology, but it's so used and so known that people know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, minimally processed, like home cooked meals are 80, 90% of my calories. And I enjoy that way more than, just going out for burgers every day or having pizza every day. No, every now and then. So when I say I eat what I want, is that I allow myself to eat whatever my body is asking me to eat that day or for that meal specifically.
let me rephrase. You eat more freely, right? That sounds better. And don't get me wrong, I don't restrict myself, right?
Mm,
But I still have this battle within myself where when I do say decide to eat a pastry or a burger, I have this battle from within where like it's like a little bit of guilt inside that I'm
I
working
see.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Yeah.
Let me just interject once more because this is
Go
really
ahead. Go
interesting.
ahead. Yeah.
This could benefit a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
I don't have that guilt or that shame whatsoever anymore. I don't know if I ever had it, but I will tell you this, brother. Whenever I indulge in like more junk foods or more treats, more desserts, it does something to my brain.
Hmm.
And by that, I mean, I then seek out more pleasure in my day to day. I seek out more short term pleasure as
Hmm.
opposed to long term gain and purpose. So it makes me weaker mentally. And people have no idea how big of an impact food has on their mental game, on their mindset, on their energy levels, their mood, but also the way their brain is wired,
Hmm.
the way they think and the brain operates. It's heavily, heavily influenced by our eating and our not eating. That's why fasting is so important. When I mentioned earlier that the ability carry yourself, and the fight is a huge confidence boost. My brother, the ability to control your stomach, to control your food, is a massive confidence booster, even bigger than any skill in martial arts or fighting is, because then you have mastered a challenge, you have mastered a discipline that is very high level,
Yeah.
very, very high. Very few people will in this lifetime be able to control their food and discipline their stomachs.
It's very ascending to have that control, whether it's, the desire to eat, right, whatever you want, and to control that desire. And the same thing with, like you mentioned earlier, you having sex, sexual pleasure, uh, messing around with multiple women, like having that, knowing how to,
Pornography,
yeah, knowing how to control that, or like consuming those type of things. That's just a different level of a man, you know.
100%.
Now we're nearing the end. I do want to ask you about your content creation, because you've been on YouTube for a while now.
Mm.
I think almost 10 years or so, 9, 10 years, and you've been very consistent. Now, with that said, now have you gotten a lot of like haters, a lot of like negative comments, people talking about like maybe you're fasting or you're training or you need to lift weights if you want to really reach levels of strength, etc.?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, the amount of hate or negativity I get on my content is very limited. I think that it's because of who I am and how I speak, and the fact that most people can tell that I really don't care whether you agree with me or not, or whether you like me or not, like my approach or not. I could care less. So most people refrain from even sharing that negativity or their hate. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes I get it, and obviously sometimes it gets to me. In the sense that it makes me think and it makes me question myself sometimes. But then, I get a workout in, drink a shot of espresso, and I'm back to where I need to be mentally. So it is what it is. Yeah. It specifically in the last year, I would say hate has picked up in my content. But I'm also, I guess you could say, controversial in my take on things. And so I invite hate, or I invite opposing opinions. And that's just the nature of the game. It will never really get to me. Never. Why? Because I know this is truthful. This is honest. I know I'm not BSing in my content ever. Like, people might not like the way that I look, the way that I speak, my approach to things, but they can't say that I'm honest. They cannot say that um, I don't have the results. They can't deny what I have accomplished over the last 10, 20 years. So hate's going to be there always. And obviously, the more hate I get, the more clicks I get, the more views I get.
Definitely.
And that way, the more people I can reach and the more people I can potentially help. So it's a trade-off. It's when you're insecure in your own shoes, in yourself. And obviously the hate can get to you, but when you know who you are and who you have to be in this world, it just ricochets right off you.
You're unfazed. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Is it something, content creation? Is it something you enjoy? Is it something that sometimes you feel like obligated to do in order to continue with that consistency?
I do enjoy it, but I also feel obligated, as in, this is my job.
Hmm.
I got to clock in. I got to clock in. Now, I might not do it every single day, even though I create content, I would say at least 6 days a week. Um, some days I don't feel like it. But then I also understand it's not about me. It's not about what I want to do, what I feel like. If I'm in the moods to create content. Sometimes the best content, the most heartfelt content I produce on days where I don't feel like, filming myself. I don't feel like speaking to an audience. I don't feel like doing anything. Just want to sit on the couch, watch some mindless TV, and eat Doritos. But on those days specifically, if I'm able to force myself, if I'm able to overcome those obstacles, I sometimes create some really good stuff that I know reaches somebody, helps somebody, serves somebody. And that's all I'm trying to do, brother. That's all I'm trying to do. I know God made me to be a leader,
Hmm.
but the Bible also says that to be the greatest in the kingdom, you have to be a servant. You have to make yourself smaller. Don't exalt yourself, humble yourself, and
Hmm.
God will exalt you. And so I'm trying to remember on those days where I don't feel like creating content that I'm here for a purpose. I got to help somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to watch this video. Somebody's going to hear this message and it's going to benefit them. It's going to help them. So I just know that I'm a servant. I got to do this. Got to
It's
do
like
this.
it's like I said before. I feel like our one of our biggest purposes as men is to serve. You know
Absolutely. Amen.
that's one of our biggest purposes. And you had a couple of quotes that really connect that really spoke to me. And you had one that said, uh, "The work instills the worth."
Oof.
Right? I love that. Can you just give me a quick little elaboration on that one?
The work is the reward that God gives us, literally. And the reward is inside the work. It's not something that you're given after you're done doing whatever you must do. No, I feel like you truly get to know yourself during that process, during a hard workout, during a hard fast, during content creation, if that's your work,
Hmm.
during suffering, doing something that you don't actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that in and of itself is tremendously rewarding. And so see it as such. Don't just wait for the reward on the other side. Look at it as I get to do this today. I'm privileged enough to wake up this morning, um, to pursue whatever business, whatever responsibilities I have, um, and then I get to sharpen my skills cognitively, physically. I get to grow into the man that I'm called to be, and that is the reward in and of itself. It's not the destination, which we mistakenly think of as the reward.
Hmm.
Oh, then I'm going to be jacked. I'm going to be ripped. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be influential. I'll have 100,000 followers. If it were all about the followers and the views and the likes for me, I would have stopped with this. I would have ended this many, many years ago. Many, many years ago. But it has to transcend that.
Hmm.
It has to transcend that short-term gain, that short-term reward that we think of as the reward. And we got to look at it through the lens of life. What is my life? How do I want to live life? Who do I want to be in this world? What do I want to be remembered for? Who is God calling me to be for myself, for other people, for God? What's my purpose? What's my role here? So it all leads back to that. And in terms of training, the reward is that you get to do another session,
For
another
sure.
set, another rep. In terms of your nutrition, it's the same deal. I get to stick to these macros, which is already a luxury, brother. The fact that we have full control over our nutrition. Now, most people never make use of that control, but they decide 100% of the time what they choose to fill their fridge with and ultimately what they choose to fill their bellies with,
Hmm.
regardless of economical status. I hate when people say that, oh, I'm too poor to eat healthy. You're too poor to buy some vegetables
Yeah.
and some chicken and some lentils and some maybe eggs. You're too poor. You can't afford that, but you can afford DoorDash. You can't afford a box of donuts because it was on sale. Get out of here. Everybody, with very few exceptions, can afford decent food. Doesn't have to be the best, the highest protein, the lowest in fats. Doesn't have to be any fancy designer stuff. Decent food,
Sure. Mhm.
earth-grown foods, God-made foods. That's all you need. That's all you need to thrive and to reach all your physical goals, aesthetic goals, performance goals.
Oh, beautifully said. We are unlimited beings. Pressure and pain are gifts, God's fertilizers. I like that one.
I love that one.
Yes.
I came up with that one the other day when I
That
was,
one was good. Yeah.
you know, I, I'm a very boring guy, brother. Like I like to construct my days. I like to follow the simple and the same routine day in, day out. Like if you look at my life, it has to be very boring from the outside looking in, but I enjoy this because I'm creating something. So one of the things that I like to do first thing or very early in the morning is to read my Bible. I was reading through the Old Testament the other day, and I realized that I'm going to do a little bit of journaling right after, which is usually connected to my Bible study. So I read my Bible, then whatever sticks out, I write down on a journal, and I write down how this can be applied in my life. Not just theoretically, but actually in this next 24-hour cycle. And this was the quote that I came up with because I realized that the harder my life got in these last 40 years, the harder that God pushed me, the more fulfilling life was, the more enjoyable life was. And the more and the faster I grew as a man. So pain is a fertilizer because it is necessary for us to grow. There's no growth in comfort, none whatsoever. That's why society is a wreck today
Love it.
because our lives are so comfortable. There's no pain, there's no self-denial, and thus there's very little purpose, very little growth, very little progress. So this is what I understood in that moment. God made us to go through pain and hardship, to go through difficulty, just like a father would push his son through different means to grow him, to challenge him, but ultimately to grow him into a man, into a better person. That doesn't happen by just sugarcoating things, by making things easier, by trying to avoid hardship, avoid difficulty. Not at all. The opposite is the case. You want to run straight at it. You want to lean into difficulty.
Mhm.
You actually want to lean into pain, specifically when talking training. I'm not some, masochist, but I understand that the harder I can push my pain threshold in the gym, the better my results will be. To an extent. Obviously, if I do that for hours on end, every single day, I'll just run myself into the ground. But
Yeah.
following the basic principles, the basic guidelines, the harder you push, the better your results will be. It's a universal rule.
Yeah.
It doesn't just hold true for the gym. It holds true for any area in life.
In all facets of life, for sure.
Yeah. So if you want to grow, you have to face that difficulty, face that pain, and don't shy away from it. Face it head on. Beautiful thing is that training, training the body teaches us that. Fasting teaches us that. Following a rigid daily program, a disciplined daily program, teaches us just that.
Definitely. Beautifully said. Now, what do you have? Do you have anything in the works, training wise, business wise, content creating wise?
So much, brother. I'm always I'm always coming up with new stuff. In terms of the content, I just like to document what I do, more than create out of thin air. I like to just show people what works for me and what continues to work for me and my clients. I just share that. That's, I would say, 80-90% of my content. In terms of my programs, yes, I'm working on updating some of my written programs actually as we speak. And you know, always working to provide a better service for my clients who are inside my program. Um, Better results across the board and making this, like we said earlier, more enjoyable. It's, bro, I'm loving this life. I'm loving this journey. And I don't see these responsibilities that I have and this work that still needs to be done on my part. I don't see them as burdens.
Mhm.
I see them as opportunities. I see them as, again, as rewards from God. I get to do this. So I'm always trying to improve in the gym, with my nutrition, with my programs, the service that I provide to my clients and to the world at large. I want to make better content, better videos, better everything. I want to attract a larger audience. All this I know I'm called to do, and all this I know I will have
Mhm.
in due time. God's timing, God's plan. It's perfect. I'm not trying to rush it. I'm enjoying the ride as I'm going along, and I will show up every day. That's what I can promise you. Till the day I fall, I will be here. I will
Yeah,
be here.
everything will fall into place as it should when it should, for sure.
Exactly.
Right?
You
Uh,
got to trust in that. You
yeah,
got
for
to have
sure.
faith in that.
Hmm.
But then you also got to show up for the work.
Yeah, you
Don't
got
be
to put in the work.
lazy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they
Don't think the universe or the Lord will hand you down these rewards. No, no, no. We
yeah,
show up every day for the
yeah.
work.
You got to meet them halfway at least. You got to do something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Bro, even if it's like 2% of the way,
yeah.
God will do the other 98%.
One
But
per 1% better every day. Just one
exactly.
percent. Just go 1%. All of us want to go from 0 to 100. Like you said, it's they people are looking at the destination when it's really you should be really focusing on the journey, not just out here but also from within, because it shapes who you are as a person. Where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you if they want to like use hire you as a coach, or they just want to check out your content?
Sure. Well, just check me out. Google me, Victor Gaspar. My Instagram will pop up. My YouTube will pop up. Or just search me in the YouTube search bar, Victor Gaspar, Gaspar. And yeah, my website, Living Lean and Mean. You'll also find um, through all my other channels. I'm also on Instagram at Living Lean and Mean. And so yeah, it's not hard to find me. Also, anytime you Google 1 meal a day, intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting, also the alternate day fasting, my videos will
You'll
pop
pop
up
up. Yeah.
at some point. Yeah.
Final question. I think I know the answer to this though. Are you mentally fit?
I'm mentally fit. More and more, brother. Yes. I wasn't always. Even when I was very physically fit, I wasn't mentally fit the way that I would describe mentally fit because I was still indulging in habits
Hmm.
that were self-destructive.
For sure.
Specifically in my case, overeating. So I would blur my mind. I would blur my focus. I would blur the vision that God put inside my heart through overeating. And that's why I'm such a huge proponent of fasting. That's why I'm such a huge proponent of prolonged food abstinence because I've seen firsthand what it did for me. It made me smarter. It made me more focused. It made me clearer.
Hmm. For
It
sure.
it stabilized my mood and made me more functional in this world. Functional as in I was able to do the things that I must do every day better, at a higher level, at a higher frequency. So, yeah, I still believe that I do have some room for improvement when it comes to cognition, improving cognition, mental fitness, if you will. But I'm on a good path. And I know that the program that I follow every day is only moving me closer to that ultimate Vic, to my potential, to the way that God sees me. And God saw me before he ever put me on this earth.
Yeah, well said. That was perfect. Vic, thank you so much for your time. It took a little
This was a
long.
blast, brother.
It took me. I hope it didn't take too long, but I was enjoying this.
No, this was fun.
You
This was
know,
fun.
I really connected well with you. This was likewise. This was fun for me too. I really enjoyed it. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, brother.
Congratulations on the new addition to your family.
Yeah, buddy.
You'll be a great dad.
Big things
She's
coming.
Wife is gonna be a great mom. It's a
That
beautiful
baby's gonna
blessing.
be jacked.
That baby's gonna come out of there jacked. I know, man, but
Straight into the push-ups.
yeah,
Straight to the first set of
for
push-ups.
sure. I believe it. But thanks again. I really enjoyed this.
Appreciate you, brother. This was fun. We'll stay connected.
We'll stay connected for sure.
We'll stay in touch.
Peace, sir.
Take care, brother.